Well, we changed over to the bus, Vic, because not because we couldn't get Alec Lang's truck, but because the camps grew so much in size that we couldn't fit them on it.
That's right.
And so, even in that bus, that's a huge bus, to fit those campers in, and sometimes we used vehicles as well to take the 115, 120 young people around the place.
I think I can remember one year when the bus wouldn't start by itself and had to be pushed, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, I think there might be a shot of that somewhere. I'm not sure whether it's included in it, but yes, that's right. I recall sometimes when the uncles would say to us, and we call them uncles, it's too hot to do devotions, we're going to go to the pool. And so we'd go off to the Red Cliffs pool or the Merbean pool. We just had great times there together. The shots we're going to see from now on, I think, were taken by Harry Diggle in the later era, Vic. And look, I'm going to have to rely on you a fair bit because you were just a young bloke with your tie on when we saw you last in that film, but you were involved in these camps probably more than I was.
Well, certainly one of the district swimming pools, Doug, and I think that was Redcliffe's, I'm not sure.
I think you might be right.
Those willow trees seem to give it away a bit.
That looks pretty right to me, too.
That's Ray Rankin, of course, walking along there.
Yes, well, although I was involved in helping to set those camps up with Arthur and the others.
There's George.
Yeah, George. I didn't have a lot to do with the actual camping. I was working at that time, but I would go at night and share with them in concerts and those sorts of things.
Rodney. Loris. That would have to be a Rankin Volkswagen, I think.
That'd be Ray. Yeah, that's Ray. And his Volkswagen. All the Rankins had Volkswagens, didn't they?
Yes.
Yeah, can you tell me where that shot was taken, Vic? That's Vic Clark's little Ford up there, isn't it? Isn't that your Ford up in the corner?
It was the B model Ford through the back window, I think.
I'm sure it was. Yeah. That's still at Mansell's. You can see the racks there.
And I think a lot of the fellas had cars by this time.
Well, I noticed that, Vic. And there was only, I think, two of us, Lou Kinley-Side and myself, had vehicles, and a couple of the boys had motorbikes, but there's a lot of cars here.
Well, I think it also helped with the transportation, Doug, because we couldn't all fit in the bus.
Exactly.
So quite a few of them travelled in private cars when we went somewhere.
They certainly did. That's quite right.
This looks like a farewell.
It looks like a farewell, and everybody gets a kiss when they're off. It looks like a group heading off home.
Could be Berry, perhaps.
To Berry or Swan Hill, yes. They were sad times to see some of these precious people moving off. Yeah, there they go out
out the front gate of Mansell's, I think, isn't it?
That's right. Vic, you'd remember this. We built a big hall down there at Mansell's, didn't we?
That's right.
What an asset that was for the few years that we were still down at Mansell's.
Well, it took the place of the tent.
It did, and it made things so much easier.
Shelter, yes.
There's a shot of Vic Clark there sitting in that hole.
Goodness me.
There's one of the tents over against the rack.
That's where the boys always were.
That's where they were.
Against the rack.
Well away from the girls at that time. We were pretty well segregated though, weren't we, Vic? There was no mucking around. There was no boys and girls mixing after curfew at night.
No.
It was pretty well controlled.
I don't know whether that might have been the bus that had to be pushed, but it looks a bit like
Well, I can remember one bus breaking down. Oh, yeah, you're right. There it is.
And that happened all through the camp, as I remember.
Well, is that right? Well, that might be why they let us have that bus. There's a shot of Vic Clark. You had to be in there, didn't you? Gee. Well, then we shifted out to the campsite, and we bought land at Coolong from the Timmises, just opposite Timmises Raceway. And you remember that, Vic? The Shire moved those buildings for us. They cut that hall in half and took it out there. There it is on the back of the one of the Shire trucks. Oh, gee, the Shire were good to us. Remember particularly Mr. Johansson, who said to Arthur and I, if you guys
the city Shire engineer.
Yeah, he was the Shire engineer. He said, if you guys are serious about looking after young people, he said, I'll back you to the hilt. And he did. He supplied the truck, the jinker, and helped us to shift that building. That's a shot of the kitchen that we added to that after that building went in there. Yeah, and then we had the dorms that we acquired from the Air Force Base. They were ex-Army huts, so we added some of those together and made dormitories for people to live in, much more comfortable than we had. But we had a lot of stuff to clear there, Vic, didn't we? Remember the Tree of Heaven?
Oh, I certainly do.
Look,
it grew everywhere.
Every time you dug a hole, a Tree of Heaven would grow up. And we had the guys that had tractors out there trying to drag that stuff out. There's a shot of some of the bamboos that grew out there. And
it was right on the channel there, wasn't it?
It was right on the channel, and that was pretty important for us. We couldn't get water out there. I remember we tried to do that, but so we had to set those tanks up, and we had pumps on there and had to run plastic pipe down to the shower block and the kitchen. And there was a lot of hard work back in those days for a few people who worked very, very hard every weekend for a couple of years, just working away to make that campsite what it was. People used their tractors and every ability they had to be able to make that what we wanted it to be.
Well, Doug, obviously a lot of money was spent out there. How was it funded?
Well, let me think back. But, we there was the sale of the Baronga Sunday School, which helped us a fair bit. But we were in a fair bit of financial trouble for a while, and I remember the government gave us $7,000 if we could match that. And we worked very hard to try and match that. You might remember that at that time we were able to encourage other groups outside of our own people, like some from the universities and the schools, to come and use that facility, as well as our own groups, of course, with Boys Brigade and Girls Brigade and different school functions. But yes, financially it was a real battle.
Well, this seems to be back in the 1950s again, Doug.
Yes, we've jumped back a little bit, I think, Vic, haven't we, here? Yeah. And this is
one of the pools again.
Back to the camping days at the pool again. Yeah.
I think that's the outside of the Rector's pool. I'm not sure. See the Rector's somewhere, but I think it's Rector's.
The Rector's pool. And I'm sure people are going to recognise folk they know now, particularly as we get on to a little bit later period. Some of our not so senior people might be able to recognise a number of the folk that are there.
I think George must have been considered to be fairly photogenic by the
I was thinking that. George is in a lot of shots, isn't he? Yes. He was a friend of yours, wasn't he, George? A close friend of yours?
Very much
Yeah, great guy, yeah. Bit of wrestling going on there.
One way of blocking the photographer out.
Yes, that's right. It looked a little bit like Peter Mac, was it, in that shot, and Ozzy Ostrom? Do you remember?
Yes, I think this might have been a camp after I'd finished camping.
Is that right?
Yes. I'd gone to Melbourne at that stage.
Oh, okay. Well, the buses were a great asset to us. Arthur Mack got his licence to drive a bus, and you could pretty well get a bus any time you wanted it. I wonder sometimes whether the buses that we got were the top bus in the range, because you saw the shot of having to push them. But I can remember taking one to Hall's Gap, and I remember Arthur checking out the steering before we left. He climbed under it, and then I had to hold it in second gear. Otherwise it would have jumped out going up some of those steep grades.
So maybe the buses we got were the ones that couldn't be sort of used by anyone.
Well, you might have something in there. But the bus lines were pretty good to us just the same. But you're probably right, because there always seemed to be some problem with the bus. Either it wouldn't start, or you had to push it, or you had to do this, that.
Well, I suppose they could get one more week out of them before they had to be maintained.
Well, that's about right. But they were a real asset to us as campers to have the facility to be able to use that bus the way that we did.